Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and checking your bank account. There's $1 million in it, not a loan, not a mistake, it's yours. Now imagine everyone else on earth waking up to the exact same thing. Your neighbor, your barista, every stranger you've ever passed on the street. 8 billion new millionaires all on the same morning. For about 10 seconds, this sounds like the greatest day in human history. Then a strange, uncomfortable question creeps in. If everyone has $1 million, does anyone actually have anything at all? You've probably heard the phrase, money doesn't grow on trees. It's usually said to teach a kid the value of a dollar, but it's actually one of the most important ideas in economics, and almost nobody stops to ask why it's true. Money isn't valuable because of the paper it's printed on, or the numbers on a screen. It's valuable because it's scarce, and because other people agree to treat it as valuable. Scarcity is the entire engine underneath the price of everything you own. So what happens when you remove scarcity from money itself, but leave everything else exactly the same? Let's follow this thought experiment all the way to the end, because the answer says something unsettling about what wealth actually is. Picture the first hour after the money appears. You open your banking app in disbelief. Across the planet, people are doing the same thing, screenshotting balances, laughing, crying, calling family members. For that first hour, it feels like liberation. Debts could vanish, poverty could end. Every person on earth suddenly holds enough to buy a house outright in most cities, retire early, or start the business they always dreamed about. But now think about what $1 million is actually for. It's not for staring at, it's for buying things, houses, cars, land, food, time. And here's the detail almost everyone misses in this fantasy. None of those things multiplied overnight. The number of houses on earth stayed exactly the same. The amount of farmland stayed exactly the same. The number of Ferraris in existence stayed exactly the same. Only the money changed, and when the amount of money explodes while the amount of stuff stays fixed, economists have a name for what happens next. It's called inflation, and in cases this extreme, it has another name entirely, hyperinflation. You don't have to imagine this in the abstract. It already happened in real countries to real people. In Germany in 1923, the government began printing enormous quantities of money to pay off war debts. At first, people felt richer, then prices started rising by the hour. Workers were paid twice a day because their wages would lose meaningful value by lunchtime. Historians tell stories of people needing wheelbarrows just to carry enough cash for a loaf of bread. By the end, the German mark had become almost worthless, and it took over 4 trillion of them to equal a single US dollar. The money didn't disappear, it just stopped mattering. Zimbabwe lived through something similar in the late 2000s. The government issued a $100 trillion note. You could hold more zeros in your palm than most people will type in a lifetime, and it still might not buy you a piece of bread. Same money, same paper, same ink. Different meaning because the ratio between money and goods had broken completely. Now scale that idea up to the entire planet, all at once, in a single day. If 8 billion people suddenly hold $1 million each, sellers everywhere would realize something within hours. Everyone can now afford almost anything, so why not charge more? A house that cost $300,000 yesterday might cost $3 million tomorrow because buyers can suddenly pay it and sellers know it. Grocery stores would face lines of newly wealthy shoppers, but the actual quantity of bread, rice, and vegetables in the world hasn't grown one single loaf. Prices would rise to meet the flood of cash, not the other way around. Within weeks, maybe days, your new $1 million might not buy more than your old salary used to. Here's the part that reframes everything. Wealth was never really about the number in your account. It was about your number relative to everyone else's. $1 million feels enormous today because most people don't have one. The moment that stops being true, the number stops functioning as wealth. It becomes just a number. This is where the psychology gets even stranger, because economists have studied what happens to people the moment they receive sudden money, and the results complicate the fantasy even further. In 1978, psychologist Philip Brickman studied lottery winners and found something researchers still cite today. Within about a year, most winners returned to roughly the same baseline happiness they had before winning. The house changed, the bank account changed, the person underneath mostly didn't. Decades later, economist Daniel Kahneman working with Angus Deaton found that emotional well-being rises with income only up to a certain point, and beyond that point, more money barely moves the needle on how happy people report feeling day to day. There's even a term for this pattern, first noticed by economist Richard Easterlin, the Easterlin paradox, where a country's average happiness doesn't reliably increase even as its average income rises over decades. Money helps you escape hardship. It's far less effective at manufacturing joy once hardship is gone. So ask yourself, if the entire planet becomes wealthy on paper at the same moment, whose life actually improves? The person who couldn't previously afford food would suddenly compete for that same food against everyone else, all bidding with the same inflated cash. The billionaire, meanwhile, barely notices, because their fortune was never really measured in dollars alone. It was measured in what dollars could still buy that other people's dollars couldn't. This forces an uncomfortable realization about wealth itself. Wealth was never really about money. Wealth is about scarcity, access, and relative position. It's a place in line, not a number in an account. Give everyone the same number and you haven't erased the line. You've just made the number meaningless. There is, however, a genuinely fascinating twist hiding inside this thought experiment because it isn't purely theoretical anymore. Governments have actually tested smaller, more careful versions of giving people money directly. In Finland, between 2017 and 2018, researchers ran a real basic income experiment, giving a group of unemployed citizens a fixed monthly payment with no strings attached. The results didn't crash the economy or trigger hyperinflation because the amount of new money entering the system was tiny compared to a global flood of instant millionaires. Recipients reported better mental health and lower stress even though their employment outcomes barely changed. Historian and author Rutger Bregman has spent years arguing that carefully controlled cash transfers can reduce poverty without destroying an economy, precisely because they stay small enough not to break the relationship between money and scarcity. That's the crucial difference. A small, gradual increase in money among people who need it most can genuinely help because the rest of the economy can absorb it slowly, but an instant, universal, massive flood, the kind in our original thought experiment, breaks the very system that gives money its meaning in the first place. So picture the weeks after the $1 million every won. Landlords raise rents overnight. Grocery chains quietly adjust prices upward. Car dealerships suddenly find themselves able to charge triple because everyone technically can afford it. The number in your account still reads 1 million, but somehow it buys less than your old salary did a month ago. Meanwhile, farmland, oil reserves, factories, real estate, the actual physical backbone of civilization, hasn't changed size or quantity at all. Because true wealth was never the money, it was always the stuff, and the stuff didn't multiply just because the money did. Within a year, economists studying this scenario suggest something almost poetic would happen. The world would likely settle back into something resembling its old hierarchy. Prices adjust, wages adjust, the relative gap between rich and poor reappears, just with more zeros attached to every number. The homeless person with a suddenly worthless million might still struggle to eat. The billionaire's fortune, though diluted, might still command the same relative dominance it always had. The system doesn't collapse into equality. It reshuffles itself right back toward the same imbalance, only now measured in bigger digits. So think back to that first morning, opening your banking app, staring at 7 extra zeros, feeling like the luckiest person alive. What if the truth was staring back at you the entire time? The money in that account was never wealth. It was a claim on things other people don't have enough of. In the instant everyone holds an equal claim, the claim itself stops meaning anything at all. You didn't wake up richer that morning, you woke up holding a slightly heavier version of exactly what you had the day before.